infamous New Mexico prison gang is now in the crosshairs of the FBI.
In today's video, we're diving into the FBI's exhaustive investigation into Syndicato de Nuevo Mexico, or SNM, that culminated in the indictment of a total of 40 members on federal VICAR and RICO charges in December 2015. Subsequently, in April 2016, the United States Attorney's Office brought charges against 39 SNM members and associates. Approximately 127 individuals have been arrested in connection with this investigation. Join us as we delve into the crimes that led to the downfall of these SNM members and explore the revelations uncovered in the 6-year FBI investigation aimed at dismantling the gang. Syndicato de Nuevo Mexico, or SNM, is a prison gang which has operated in New Mexico's prisons for decades. Comprised of approximately 250 members, SNM is a violent prison gang that originated in the early 1980s at the penitentiary of New Mexico following a violent prison riot where inmates took 12 correctional officers hostage, subjecting them to assault and rape. This riot resulted in the deaths of 33 inmates and injuries to over 200 others. Since its formation, SNM has grown to have a significant presence in the state's prison system, with as many as 500 members at one point. In order to display their allegiance and loyalty, SNM members often showcase symbols like the Zia Sun symbol, the initials SNM, the letter S, and the numbers 19 and 505 in tattoos, graffiti, artwork, and attire. The Zia Sun symbol originated from the Zia Pueblo's sun emblem, which now serves as the centerpiece of the New Mexico state flag. The number 19 symbolizes the letter S. Additionally, the area code 505 covered the entire state of New Mexico up until 2007 and now serves Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and Farmington metropolitan areas. The gang operates under a leadership structure known as a panel or mesa of leaders who issue orders to subordinate members. The leadership of the gang adheres to a strict blood in, blood out philosophy. Prospective members are required to spill the blood of an enemy or rival as a way of proving themselves, known as earning your bones. Once a person becomes a member, there is no getting out. SNM's goal is to run the prison system by engaging in drug distribution and other illegal activities. Leaders of the SNM gang manage to communicate orders to their members and associates both within and beyond the prison walls using various methods. These include passing secret notes, sending coded letters, and delivering messages through visitors. The SNM are so known for their effective system of coded messages, to the point that during the trial of Anthony Baca, aka Pup, the alleged leader of the gang, the state suggested the installation of a partition around him to restrict his view. They wanted to do this to limit his interactions with co-defendants to prevent potential communication of coded messages. However, the court ultimately decided not to implement the partitioning. SNM's influence also extends beyond prison walls. Members who get released after completing their sentences are expected to further the gang's goals, particularly in drug trafficking. Those who fail to demonstrate unwavering loyalty to the gang are disciplined in various ways, including murder and assaults. SNM also exerts pressure on smaller Hispanic gangs in the region, seeking to expand its operations through intimidation and coercion. If another gang fails to comply with SNM's demands, SNM resorts to assaulting or killing one of the rival gang's members as a demonstration of its power. Strangulation is a trademark method of murder by the SNM to assert its gang identity, to claim or protect its territory, to challenge or respond to challenges, to retaliate against a rival gang or member, and to gain notoriety and show its superiority over others. SNM engages in various forms of violence both within and outside the prison system. This includes beatings, stabbings, and targeted attacks. SNM expects its members to confront and attack individuals perceived as threats, including informants, cooperating witnesses, homosexuals, or sex offenders. To maintain its power and influence, SNM profits off trafficking narcotics, extorting drug traffickers, and using intimidation, violence, and even murder. SNM also emphasizes the importance of instilling fear in others to maintain dominance, with retaliation being a key principle. In SNM's view, that means that if you move on one of us, we move back on you. Consequently, SNM maintains a certain reputation. Due to this, SNM does not always have to use violence to assert its control, as the smaller gangs are wary that SNM members might resort to attacking or even killing them if they end up behind bars. Any actions taken against the gang are seen as disrespectful and must be met with severe consequences to uphold the gang's reputation, as respect is everything, and SNM members cannot tolerate disrespect in any form. Members are expected to protect this respect at all costs, even if it means facing life in prison. Roy Martinez, an SNM member, stated that getting a life sentence to maintain respect will get you a pat on the back in SNM, and disobeying orders will get you green lit, meaning killed. Members believe they have no choice but to follow orders. An SNM member explained, when there is a green light on the line, SNM members don't take the chance of being disobedient. The concept of respect within SNM could either bolster or weaken a member's status within the organization, both within the prison system and outside of it. Billy Cordova, an SNM member, stated, "When you disrespect one, you disrespect all of us. It's more about not only looking weak, but even people thinking that we're weak. We try to keep our status by instilling fear in other people. So if you move on one of us, we move back on you. If you're disrespected, even within, if you don't do something about it, you pretty much get knocked off." The FBI commenced an investigation into SNM in March 2015 following reports of threats against staff members of the New Mexico Department of Corrections, which we will discuss in detail later on in the video. SNM members were not immediately charged with the crimes that they committed, even when there was evidence implicating them. A spokesperson for the district attorney's office indicated that it was because the cases were going to be prosecuted at the federal court level. According to an FBI arrest warrant affidavit, over 30 members and leaders of SNM secretly cooperated with law enforcement in this investigation, which aimed to dismantle the murderous gang. The affidavit, drafted by FBI Special Agent Brian E.C., the primary investigator in the case, notes that more than 20 individuals within the gang were identified as confidential human sources. The FBI continues to monitor the SNM organization. In March 2001, Billy Garcia held the highest position among SNM members at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility. He orchestrated the killings of SNM member Frank Castillo and Ronaldo Garza, a former member of a rival gang. He planned the two murders to be executed at the same time. Billy meticulously planned the timing and method of the murders, instructing a fellow SNM member to select teams to carry out the murders. In Las Cruces on March 26, 2001, officials at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility alerted New Mexico State Police that an inmate, identified as Frank Castillo, aka Pancho, had been found dead in his cell. Richard Garza's body was also discovered by prison officials in his bed, and he died by strangulation. We will be focusing on the murder of Frank Castillo in this video. New Mexico State Police investigators arrived to discover signs suggesting Frank had also been strangled. Investigators were told that Frank was a member of the SNM gang. During questioning, inmate and SNM member Edward Troop denied knowing Frank and denied involvement in his death. On March 27, 2001, the Office of the Medical Investigator completed a report detailing the findings from Frank's autopsy. The examination revealed a tightly rolled laundry bag wrapped around Frank's neck, and it was twisted upon itself. The cause of death was determined to be ligature strangulation, and it was ruled as a homicide. A confidential informant who was incarcerated at Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility at the time gave a statement on July 22, 2003. On the morning of Frank's murder, Edward and Angel de Leon, another SNM member, were seen sitting on the bed in Edward's cell and removing string from a laundry bag, while Joe Gallegos, another SNM member, was speaking to Frank in the upper part of the pod. While the confidential informant was returning to his own cell, he noticed Edward sitting on a table, and Frank's cell door was closed. The confidential informant started to walk up the stairs when Edward warned him not to go up there. However, the CI continued to go to his cell when sounds resembling a door being kicked were coming from Frank's cell. The CI then saw Edward go to Frank's cell door and kick it in order to keep it closed. The CI entered his cell but continued to look out, and he saw Angel and Joe leave Frank's cell and head directly to the showers. The CI stated that they were all called in for breakfast, and he walked with Angel, who told him that Joe and Frank were shooting up heroin in Frank's cell. When it was Frank's turn, Angel described grabbing Frank's arm while Joe proceeded to tighten a string around his neck. Despite Frank's attempts to get away, Edward intervened by forcibly shutting the cell door to prevent him from escaping. Angel stated that he continued to hold Frank, while Joe strangled him. It was during this breakfast when Frank's body was discovered. Joe also showed the CI a burn mark on his hand, which he confessed getting when he strangled Frank. On September 12, 2007, New Mexico State police officers met with Leonard Lujan, another SNM member, regarding Frank's murder. Leonard disclosed that Billy Garcia wanted Frank to be removed. He wanted Frank killed first by strangulation. Leonard confessed to ordering Joe and Angel to carry out the killing because Joe and Angel had green lights on them, and by murdering Frank, their names would be cleared. On October 17, 2007, Leonard positively identified Joe and Angel in a photo lineup as the ones he ordered to kill Frank. Sometime after Frank's murder, Angel was heard making several statements about Frank, including "There is a ghost. It's Pancho. He's haunting me." Over 5 years later, in late November 2012, a confidential informant had a conversation with Edward at a house in Albuquerque. During the discussion, Edward disclosed his involvement in the murder of Frank and alleged that Billy had given the order to carry out the killing. Edward admitted to entering Frank's cell, where Angel and others were waiting, and subsequently closed the door to stand guard as they strangled Frank. The motive for Frank's murder, as per Edward, was allegedly due to Frank's appearance on an episode of Cops where he was seen cooperating with law enforcement. Given the confined space of Frank's cell with limited entry and exit points, he was defenseless against his attackers and unable to seek help from correctional officers while being strangled. Angel held Frank's arm in place as Joe wrapped a string around his neck. Edward, being a member of the SNM, was compelled by the gang's leadership to take part in the murder. During the trial, Michael Jaramillo provided testimony about the 2001 murder of Frank and detailed Edward's role in the crime. According to Michael, Edward was responsible for keeping other inmates in the day room or their rooms while the murder took place. Michael mentioned seeing Edward both downstairs and in the pod area monitoring the cell doors. When specifically asked about Edward's involvement in the murder, Michael confirmed that Edward had played a part by acting as a lookout during the murder. Kristen Radecki, a New Mexico Department of Public Safety Crime Laboratory employee, found Angel's DNA on the rope used to kill Frank Castillo. In February 2005, Shane Dix, a 28-year-old man, was fatally shot in his vehicle late at night in Albuquerque, New Mexico's South Valley area. The Bernalillo County Sheriff Office launched an investigation into the homicide but unfortunately could not solve the case. Fast forward to 2015, when the FBI began investigating the SNM. FBI Special Agent Brian A.C. had suspicions linking the SNM to potentially being involved in Shane Dix's murder. Sometime before September 11, 2015, the FBI focused on Mario Montoya as part of their investigation into the SNM. Prior to that, Mario purchased heroin from an FBI confidential informant, which led to his arrest on September 11, 2015. After his arrest, Mario told Special Agent Brian A.C. that he had information to share with the FBI, but stated that he would need a lawyer before proceeding further. Mario faced charges for heroin distribution and a felon in possession of a firearm. On October 6, 2015, the FBI conducted an interview with Mario with his public defender, who told them that Mario had Castigar protection, which offers conditional or limited immunity. Special Agent Brian A.C. suspected the involvement of SNM members Chris Garcia and Mario Montoya in the 2005 murder of Shane Dix. Mario then confirmed his suspicions by telling him what happened. Chris and Shane got into an altercation in which Shane shot Chris in the leg, and Chris wanted to pay to have Shane killed. Chris hired Mario and an individual named Antone to kill Shane. Mario recognized Antone as they served time together in prison, and from encounters at Chris's house, though he did not know Antone's full name. Mario and Antone found Shane at a gas station in Albuquerque's South Valley, where Shane was known to sell drugs. Mario and Antone made a deal with Shane to purchase drugs, and when Shane drove to retrieve the drugs, Mario and Antone followed him in their car. Mario and Antone caught up with Shane as he was pulling his van out of a driveway. Antone then fired multiple rounds at Shane from the passenger seat of their car. Mario provided Special Agent Brian A.C. with a detailed description of Antone, describing him as an older Hispanic male adult from Albuquerque, a heroin user, and of an average height and weight. Special Agent Brian AC interpreted Antone being a heroin user to mean that he might be on the thinner side physically. In his efforts to locate Antone based on Mario's description, Special Agent Brian AC reached out to the Metropolitan Detention Center and the Department of Corrections, requesting booking photographs of individuals known as Antone who fit the given description. Approximately 15 photographs were sent to Special Agent Brian AC, out of which around 6 were promptly disqualified as they were black men, not aligning with Mario's description of Antone. Special Agent Brian AC narrowed down the selection to 9 photographs. He showed the photos to Mario for identification. Among them was a booking picture of Anthony Cordova, an S&M member. Mario carefully examined the photographs multiple times, ultimately singling out Anthony's image, stating that he resembled Antone but appeared older. On the morning of June 17, 2007, a correctional officer at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility was conducting a routine count when he discovered inmate Freddy Sanchez unresponsive, lying face down with pale limbs and no pulse. Medical staff quickly responded and noted traces of dried blood on Freddy's mouth, nose, and pillowcase. Upon the arrival of New Mexico State Police investigators, it was revealed that a correctional officer had spoken with Freddy 3 days prior when he first arrived at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility on June 14, 2007. During this conversation, Freddy mentioned concerns about a possible hit against him. The officer promptly informed the unit manager of the need to relocate Freddy for his safety. However, upon returning to work 2 days later, the officer was surprised to find that Freddy had not been moved, as this process usually happens immediately. Freddy's autopsy revealed an almost complete abrasion encircling his neck, with evidence of hemorrhaging, bruising in the neck muscles, and fractures in the neck cartilage. The cause of death was ruled as a homicide. A day before Freddy's body was discovered, security footage captured 4 inmates entering Edward Troop's cell, while Freddy was seen heading towards his own cell nearby. During this time, the security cameras were conveniently covered with wet paper towels for approximately 15 minutes. Several inmates were interviewed. These interviews revealed that Edward, Javier Alonso, and Raymond Rascon, all S&M members, were responsible for Freddy's murder. Witnesses reported hearing gurgling noises consistent with someone being strangled coming from Freddy's cell. Shortly after, Edward was seen leaving Freddy's cell with something in his hand, which he discreetly passed under another inmate's door. Edward cautioned everyone involved in Freddy's murder, no snitching. Chances are we will all be going away for a while, so take a plea if you get a chance. By July 5, 2007, the Security Threat Intelligence Unit officers concluded their investigation into Freddy's murder, relying on corroborated information from multiple sources. It was determined that Edward was among 3 inmates who had entered Freddy's cell that day and murdered him. Additionally, it was discovered that Edward had placed Freddy's body to appear as if he was asleep. On July 7, 2007, New Mexico State Police officers conducted interviews with key witnesses and suspects involved in the murder of Freddy. Among those interviewed were Ruben Hernandez, an S&M member, and Kyle Dwyer. Ruben confessed to his role in the crime, revealing that he was instructed by Edward to cover the security camera lenses before the murder took place. He refused to do it at first, but Ruben eventually complied out of fear for his own safety. He was also serving as a lookout. Ruben heard Freddy struggling, gasping, and gurgling in his cell, and witnessed Javier positioning Freddy's body on the bed. Later, Edward instructed Ruben to rearrange Freddy in the bed during the night to create the illusion that Freddy had moved. However, Ruben admitted he did not follow through with this request. Kyle, initially denying any involvement, later changed his story. He revealed that upon his transfer from the Penitentiary of New Mexico to the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility, he delivered a manila envelope to S&M member Benjamin Clark, known as Cyclone. Inside the envelope were court documents indicating Freddy had cooperated with law enforcement. According to Kyle, he had received the envelope from a correctional officer who had obtained it from inmate Joe Martinez at the Penitentiary of New Mexico. Kyle believed that Benjamin shared the contents of the envelope with other S&M members. Subsequently, Benjamin returned the envelope to Kyle, claiming that everyone who needed to see it already had, and instructed Kyle to destroy it, which he did. Following Freddy's murder, Kyle was transferred back to the Penitentiary of New Mexico and shared a bus ride with Javier. Javier showed Kyle how he could position his arm to make his wrist turn pale while wearing handcuffs, and stated that was how Freddy's face looked when he was strangling him. In late November 2012, a confidential informant had a conversation with Edward at a house in Albuquerque. During their discussion, Edward admitted to his involvement in the murder of Freddy. He confessed that he held Freddy's legs while Javier used a drawstring from a laundry bag to strangle him to death. Edward went on to reveal that he and Javier disposed of the drawstring, removed their clothes, and destroyed any evidence to conceal their roles in the murder. Edward conspired with fellow members of the S&M gang to carry out the murder of Freddy and participated in Freddy's murder at the direction and under the leadership of the S&M. Edward aided in the killing by holding Freddy's legs as Javier choked him to death inside his cell, with Ruben covering the security cameras and acting as a lookout. Due to the confined space of Freddy's cell, which had limited exits, Freddy was unable to defend himself or escape as he was being strangled out of the view of correctional officers. Additionally, Benjamin testified that shortly after Freddy's murder in 2007, he had a conversation with Edward regarding the events. According to Benjamin's testimony, Edward and Javier were instructed by two S&M members to carry out the killing of Freddy. Edward relayed to Benjamin that they were told, "If this doesn't get done, then we're going to go in there and do Fred dog, and then we're going to do you." Consequently, Edward and Javier decided to murder Freddy. Benjamin further testified that Edward described how Javier grabbed Freddy, threw him to the ground, before proceeding to strangle him with a rope. Edward admitted to falling on Freddy's legs, while Javier slammed Freddy's head into the floor while strangling him. Jody Rufino Martinez joined the S&M in 1998, and he self-identifies as a soldier of the gang. Despite not being a member of S&M, David Romero, who is Jody's cousin, agreed to smuggle drugs into a New Mexico prison for the gang's use. The stakes were high. Rudy Salazar, who joined S&M in 2008, stated that if someone was asked to smuggle drugs into a jail and failed to follow through, they would be punished with severe consequences. Jody trusted David enough to give him a package of drugs meant for the incarcerated members of the gang. However, David betrayed this trust by disappearing with the drugs and not turning himself to the authorities. This act of betrayal was seen as disrespectful by other gang members, as David had broken one of the codes that you never break by crossing the S&M. In response, Jody contacted Billy Cordova in Albuquerque, instructing him to hold David if he ever showed up at a heroin house, known as a sugar shack because of the betrayal. Billy never had the chance to carry out this order, as David never made an appearance in Albuquerque. In November 2008, David showed up, but was still on the run. He told Rudy that he was looking for help to turn himself in, and was looking for another package of drugs to take while he surrendered to authorities. Jody, pretending to want to help his cousin, led David into a trap. He told him that he arranged for him to smuggle more drugs into the county jail. Jody, along with other associates, including Rudy, picked up David in front of a project house and brought him to S&M member Jerome Cordova's home in Chimayo, New Mexico. Despite David's struggles with addiction, the group started to do drugs together. Jody confronted Rudy and handed him a 1.5-foot length cut jumper cable cord and told him, "This is on you." Rudy understood that Jody wanted him to kill David. Jody's intentions became even more clear when he used duct tape to attach the cables to Rudy's hands and led him to the room where David was using drugs. When Rudy entered, he found David holding a syringe in one hand and a spoon in the other, and he had just finished shooting up. David looked at Rudy, and he looked visibly shocked, and his eyes were bulging from cocaine use. Rudy hesitated, but Jody gave him a nudge and told him a hora. Despite his hesitation, Rudy proceeded to follow Jody's orders. He threw the cord over David's neck and wrapped it around his neck twice. Jody placed David's head in a leg lock and twisted it from side to side, trying to break his neck. Eventually, David stopped moving. After checking for a pulse and finding none, Jody confirmed that David was dead. Jody helped the group remove David's clothes and bedding and placed them in a large black trash bag. Members, including Rudy and Jerome, wrapped David's body in a comforter and placed it in a pickup truck. Jody instructed Rudy to dispose of the body, but before he could do so, Jody pulled Rudy towards him, poked his throat, handed him a knife, and said, "Stab him. Make sure he's dead." Rudy did as he was told. Subsequently, David's body was rolled off a bridge by Rudy and Jerome. They then drove to a back road where they burned his clothes and bedding. After they returned, Jody greeted them, shook their hands, and told Rudy that he will talk to him later. On December 5, 2008, David's body was found in a river near Chimayo, New Mexico. The police saw a stab wound on his neck. The official cause of death was a stab wound to the neck. However, they did not rule out strangulation. New Mexico State Police conducted interviews with Jody both the day after discovering David's body and again 4 days later. Initially, Jody claimed to have been with his then-wife, Judith Perez Martinez, during the time of the murder, and she provided a partial alibi when questioned by the police. However, Judith later testified at trial that Jody had not been with her, admitting that she had lied because she was afraid of him. Although Jody denied involvement in David's death to the police, evidence showed his eagerness to discuss the murder with associates of the S&M. S&M member Jose Lovato recounted how Jody took credit for the murder, bragging that he had slit David's throat. Similarly, Jody bragged to Billy Cordova about having whacked David, and that he slit his throat and dumped him in the river. Despite his apparent pride in the murder, Jody felt that he was not compensated for his work by the S&M leaders. He complained to Jerry Montoya, another S&M member, that he believed that the murder of David should have earned him the keys to the North. This meant being the boss and running the streets in northern New Mexico. At the very least, he expected a greater tribute from S&M member Matthew Martinez, who was on the streets, sending in drugs and money to his friends in prison, as having a higher status accords valuable benefits, like access to drugs. Expressing frustration over the size of his drug tribute, Jody emphasized the significance of his work and effort he put in for the organization by mimicking a strangling motion with his hands. In 2012, Adrian Burns was a small-scale heroin dealer in and around Los Lunas, New Mexico. His regular customers included brothers Andrew and Joe Gallegos, who were both S&M members. Joe owed a debt to Adrian. On the fatal evening, Adrian received a phone call, informed his girlfriend about a meeting with the Gallegos brothers about a drug deal, and left in his girlfriend's vehicle. This was the last time he was seen alive. Surveillance footage from a local store captured Andrew purchasing a gallon of gasoline that same evening. Just a few hours later, a bystander noticed flames erupting in a secluded, wooded location. Firefighters responding to the scene discovered Adrian's body. He had suffered severe beatings, been handcuffed, and fatally shot in the head. His lifeless body was then drenched in gasoline and set on fire alongside the vehicle he had been driving. A week after the murder, the Gallegos brothers were located by the New Mexico State Police at an Albuquerque motel. However, the state of New Mexico did not prosecute them. Joe confided in his girlfriend about the murder years later, and Andrew admitted his involvement to an S&M member who he was incarcerated with. On March 7, 2014, New Mexico State police officers were dispatched to the southern New Mexico Correctional Facility, where inmate Javier Molina had been fatally stabbed. They were also told that Javier was a known member of the S&M gang. New Mexico State police officers and crime scene investigators were presented with video footage from Pod 1AB, which consists of 16 cells divided between 2 floors, each with a shower stall. The Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility sergeant identified 4 potential suspects involved in Javier's murder: Timothy Martinez, Mario Rodriguez, Jerry Armenta, and Jerry Montoya, all S&M members. According to the video evidence, at around 5:15 in the evening, Javier was seen standing on the top floor, leaning against the railing in front of his cell, talking to Timothy. A few minutes later, Javier went into his cell, and when he returned, Timothy walked away. Mario handed Javier an object. Javier then went back to his cell with Mario following him. Shortly after, they both walked out of the cell together, while Montoya was in the common area and top floor holding a white rag. At 5:18 in the evening, Mario, Timothy, and Javier entered Javier's cell, where Mario and Timothy attempted to incapacitate him. Less than 2 minutes later, Armenta and Montoya also entered the cell, and almost immediately Timothy and Mario left. Within seconds, Javier then exited his cell with apparent bloodstains on the chest area of his white shirt, as Armenta and Montoya followed him down to the first floor. Upon reaching the bottom of the staircase, Montoya attacked Javier, and Armenta joined in. The video captured Armenta brandishing a sharp object in his right hand and making motions as if he were stabbing Javier, who was out of the camera's view. Moments later, Armenta and Montoya left, leaving Javier lying by the pod's entrance. Following the violent attack, Armenta was seen discarding an object into a trash can before returning to Javier and making a motion as if he was kicking him. Meanwhile, Montoya went into the first-floor shower and then returned to his cell. Armenta then retrieved an object from the floor and proceeded upstairs to the second-floor shower. Later on, Mario exited from the shower fully dressed, just as Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility officials were instructing all the inmates to return to their assigned pods. On the evening of March 7, 2014, crime scene analysts combed through the pod area and discovered a shank in the second-floor shower, along with 2 more shanks in the first-floor trash can near the staircase. While the analysts conducted their investigation, New Mexico State Police and Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility officers attempted to interview all inmates in the pod. However, most inmates remained silent when questioned. Those who did agree to cooperate were unable and/or unwilling to provide any information regarding the attack. Javier's cause of death was determined to be a homicide caused by numerous fatal stab wounds. The autopsy revealed a total of 43 stab wounds and 5 cuts on various parts of his body. The majority of the wounds were concentrated on the chest and abdomen, with some piercing his heart and lungs, leading to severe internal bleeding that proved fatal. Additionally, the autopsy indicated 2 distinct stabbing patterns, suggesting that 2 individuals were involved in the murder of Javier. Testimonies provided during the trial came from other co-conspirators and identified S&M members, including Gerald Archuleta, Billy Cordova, Jerry Armenta, Guadalupe Urquizo, and Mario Montoya. Their accounts revealed that Carlos Herrera held a position of authority within the gang and was considered a leader in his pod, having the power to authorize the killing of another member within the gang if deemed necessary. In September and October of 2015, FBI special agents met with Armenta, who shared the events leading up to the murder of Javier. Armenta revealed that Anthony Baca, also known as Pup, and the leader of the S&M, had been made aware of a police report from the Las Cruces Police Department implicating Javier in aiding a police investigation. Upon learning this information while incarcerated at the penitentiary of New Mexico in Santa Fe, Anthony reportedly ordered Javier's murder at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility. Armenta testified that on the day of the murder he spoke with Carlos, who confirmed the authenticity of the paperwork implicating Javier and that it was okay to move forward with the hit. Carlos chose Armenta and Montoya to carry out the murder as they needed to show their loyalty to the S&M. Armenta testified that Carlos indicated that these selections were made by him and Daniel Sanchez, aka Dan. Armenta admitted to his participation in Javier's murder, as Daniel told him that if he did not comply, he would be the one killed. Billy Cordova testified that Carlos had shown him documents which proved Javier's cooperation with law enforcement. Javier was murdered on the same day these documents surfaced to prevent him from finding out that there was a hit on him. In subsequent recorded conversations with Billy, Carlos acknowledged the paperwork and indicated he called the hit on Javier. He also explained that other S&M members had conflicting feelings about how the situation with Javier was handled. In 2003, Gerald Archuleta, a leader of the S&M gang, had a conflict with another S&M member, only referred to as JR. This was because JR had a sexual relationship with Gerald's wife, leading to Gerald putting a green light on JR. Given Gerald's position within the S&M, this green light was widely known among fellow S&M members. The green light resulted in other members of the S&M shooting JR in 2003. However, JR survived the shooting. The green light remained in effect in 2015. Consequently, another S&M member or associate acted on the hit, resulting in JR being assaulted while serving time at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility. Gerald detailed these events as part of his plea agreement. Furthermore, he disclosed that the assault and hit on JR had been approved by the leaders of the S&M, including Anthony Baca. As leader of the S&M gang in 2015, Baca was aware of the outstanding green light and sanctioned it. On March 2015, a New Mexico Corrections Department captain alerted FBI agents to concerning information from a confidential source. The information indicated that a hit was placed by high-ranking members of the S&M, targeting Cabinet Secretary Greg Marcantel and Security Threat Intelligence Unit Administrator Dwayne Santisteban. The individuals identified as giving the orders for the planned attacks were Roy Martinez, aka Shadow, Robert Martinez, aka Baby Rob, and Anthony Baca. On April 2015, the New Mexico Corrections Department and Security Threat Intelligence Unit shared original letters with the FBI detailing the planned killings. In these letters, Roy addressed two individuals, Sammy Grigo and Ruben Hinosa, instructing them to prove their loyalty to the S&M by carrying out hits on Greg and Dwayne. Roy warns both men that if they failed to complete the hits, they would be taken out. Roy explained to them that if the other S&M members could not get in contact with them, they would hurt or kill their family members. These letters triggered the FBI investigation into the S&M. Beginning in October 2015, electronic surveillance was conducted at Penitentiary of New Mexico, revealing conversations between Anthony Baca, a confidential informant, and S&M member Christopher Garcia. The discussions provided undeniable evidence that Anthony Baca had authorized the targeted killings of Greg and Dwayne. It was also found out that there was a hit out on a correctional officer. On November 11, 2015, Anthony asked Christopher to help the S&M gang with a mission. From November 15th to 30th, Christopher and Anthony used coded language to discuss getting their hands on some firearms. Christopher mentioned having guns available and even planned to hide a weapon at a secret spot for another gang member to collect. Things took a serious turn on November 28, 2015, when Christopher informed a confidential informant that they had a gun for him and that he should come to his house to get it. The CI, unable to retrieve it immediately, told him that he would come the following day. The CI met with FBI special agents who provided him with a recording device to use during his meeting with Christopher. The CI eventually got a semi-automatic pistol from him. The CI told Christopher that he had scouted Greg's home in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. He told Christopher that Greg walked his dogs near the river 3 times a week. The informant stated that he and S&M member Mandel Lon Parker would confront Greg during one of his walks and shoot him. Christopher instructed the informant to be cautious during the murder and warned him not to trust Mandel. Christopher suggested that after killing Greg, the informant should give Mandel a hot shot, which is a heroin overdose, and leave the murder weapon with Mandel to frame him for the murder. Christopher recommended using a shotgun on Greg due to his large size. The informant mentioned that he would hide the gun for Christopher and arrange a future meeting. Later, the informant met with FBI special agents at a set location and handed over the weapon. On November 30th, 2015, Christopher used coded language to tell Anthony that he had given a gun to the informant for the mission to kill Greg. On February 27, 2016, a deputy from the Valencia County Sheriff's Office responded to a disturbance call at a residence in Belen, New Mexico. The report mentioned an unknown individual breaking into a house, accompanied by 4 people carrying swords, guns, and a machete. The call was disconnected, and officers responded to the home in question. When the deputies got to the house, no evidence of a crime was found initially. Another caller reported seeing a bloodied man running through their property. However, when the deputies got to the location, the man had already left. Shortly after, deputies were dispatched to another residence as the caller stated her son, Jose, had been injured. Emergency medical services were contacted, and Jose was taken to the University of New Mexico Hospital in Albuquerque for treatment. A detective from the Valencia County Sheriff's Office visited the hospital, where medical staff revealed that Jose had sustained 2 head lacerations, a broken nose, swelling and discoloration around his right eye, and severe head injuries. In a conversation with the detective, Jose recounted that he had been working at Charlene Johnson's residence in Belen, where he stayed overnight. He recalled being abruptly woken up by a punch to his stomach, finding himself surrounded by Santos Gonzalez, Brandy Rodriguez, Paul Oso Rivera, and an unidentified female. During the incident, Jose recalled Santos asking him, "Do you remember me?" before hitting him in the eye. Santos then told the unidentified female to guard the front door, while telling Jose that Joe Gallegos had ordered a hit on him, and that they were going to kill him. Oso proceeded to hit Jose with a baton, later passing the weapon to Santos, who also hit him. Recalling the terrifying moments, Jose mentioned seeing Santos holding a machete, and as he tried to escape the bed, Santos ruthlessly struck him repeatedly on the head with the machete, like he was chopping a pineapple, causing him to collapse and lose consciousness. On March 9, 2016, the detective reached out to Jose for a follow-up discussion. Jose disclosed that he had been followed by people driving a white van recently, but did not provide any additional context about why he might be followed. Jose revealed that the attackers had mentioned Joe Gallegos put a green light on him, and they were going to kill him. He recounted how Brandy and Oso had batons while Santos had the machete. All three subjected him to a brutal beating that resulted in him losing consciousness and being left for dead. Subsequently, on May 17, 2016, FBI agents revisited Charlene to delve into the events of February 27th at her home. According to Charlene, Brandy and two men, Santos Gonzalez and Paul Rivera, appeared at her home looking for Jose. She noted that they told her to leave the house, then pushed past her to go find Jose. Charlene described hearing shouting and described it as the worst sound I've ever heard. She added, they almost killed him. It was terrible. After the ordeal, Charlene, Oso, Brandy, and Santos went to the backyard. Shortly after, Jose managed to escape, and Santos and Oso shouted, he's running. He's getting away. Charlene saw the suspects fleeing in an unspecified vehicle. Speculating on the motive behind the assault, Charlene pointed towards Joe Gallegos and his girlfriend, Shauna Gutierrez. Shauna Gutierrez admitted to her role in the crime. Shauna revealed Jose's location to her accomplices, upon which they went to that location and assaulted him. She stated that Jose was scheduled to be a witness in a case against another S&M gang member, and the motive behind the assault was primarily to prevent him from testifying. Donald Salazar was in a rival gang and was also the brother of Rudy Salazar, an S&M member. Donald was involved in a physical altercation with S&M member Jody Martinez while they were both incarcerated together in the summer of 2018. The fight stemmed from Jody's refusal to deliver a message to other inmates, which led to Donald feeling hurt and walking away, while Jody was calling him a bitch. Later, when Donald confronted Jody about the incident, Jody initiated the physical confrontation by punching Donald. Donald won the fight and caused Jody to suffer injuries. Donald only had a bloody nose. However, Jody had a black eye and was beaten bloody. This act of disrespect, as per the rules of the S&M gang, could lead to severe consequences, including death. On October 24, 2018, Jody and Donald met unexpectedly at a house where they were both purchasing drugs. Jody was in a good mood when he first entered the house. However, his demeanor changed upon seeing Donald. Their fight was brought up by Jody, and he was questioning why Donald was going around talking that he fucked him up. Donald responded, "Well, I didn't have a black eye or nothing, Holmes." Jody left the house, got a gun from his truck, and returned to the house. Despite aiming for Donald's genitals, Jody ended up shooting him in the leg. A teenager who was present during the shooting was instructed by Jody to take Donald to the hospital under threat of being shot as well. When police arrested him and were interviewing him following the incident, Jody responded, "I'm not a gun-type person, I'm a knife-type person." While incarcerated in Santa Fe in 2019, Jody directed Jose Lovato, an S&M member, to kill Donald upon his release and ensure that everybody knew it was for the S. A 16-count indictment charged members, prospects, associates of the S&M with acts of violence and other criminal activities, including murder, kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy to manufacture, distribute narcotics, and firearms trafficking. The indictment alleges that Arturo Arnulfo Garcia, Gerald Archuleta, Benjamin Clark, Mario Rodriguez, Anthony Ray Baca, Robert Martinez, and Roy Paul Martinez are the enterprise's alleged leaders. Angel de Leon, Joe Lawrence Gallegos, Edward Troop, and Billy Garcia were guilty of the murder of Frank Castillo. Billy, Edward, and Joe were found guilty on May 25, 2018. Billy was sentenced to life in prison on June 11, 2019. Edward was sentenced to life in prison on November 6, 2018. Angel was sentenced to life in prison on December 15, 2021. Joe was sentenced to life in prison on April 21, 2020. Joe was also found guilty of conspiring to murder Adrian Burns. Anthony Ray Baca was sentenced to life in prison and 120 months for his role in the murder of Javier Molina and conspiracy to murder Dwayne Santisteban and Greg Marcantel. Mandel Parker was sentenced to 3 years in prison for racketeering conspiracy. Andrew Gallegos was sentenced to mandatory life in prison after his attorney asked for a 15-year sentence for the murder of Adrian Burns. On March 7, 2014, a jury convicted Carlos Herrera of conspiracy to commit murder and murdering Javier Molina. Arturo Arnulfo Garcia was convicted of murdering Freddy Sanchez. Jody Mano Martinez was sentenced to life in prison for murder, participation in a racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations conspiracy, and being a felon in possession of a firearm and ammunition for conduct related to the S&M prison gang. Please note that the information provided in this video is based on publicly available sources and reports. Other charges and sentences related to individuals who are involved in the case, whether mentioned in the video or not, are not publicly accessible, except for those specifically mentioned. Thank you for watching.